All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have some important ground to cover. I want to be sure we give our guests enough time to share some of their expertise and wisdom with us. But let me open this with a word of prayer, and then we'll get started. God, we're thankful for your grace and your goodness. Lord, we're thankful for our bodies and the ways that you created us. Lord, it's amazing. We wonder and we have lots of questions about it. Father, we're made in your image, and yet we're physical, you're spiritual, Father, and yet those things are so intertwined in our lives. We know, God, that you will raise us again the way Jesus was raised, a bodily resurrection. And so as we think this summer together about what it means to be embodied, to have a body, to care for our bodies, all the different implications of that, Father, I just ask for your continued wisdom as you guide us and lead us. And I pray again tonight. I pray especially for Alicia and for Eric. I'm thankful for their courage, their willingness to talk with us tonight, to share some of their expertise, and just as they've searched it out and sought you and have passion for caring for not only their own bodies, but helping even the body of Christ live more fully into the lives you called and created us for. Father, would you bless them as they share with us tonight? Lord, we love you. We're thankful for Jesus. We pray in his name. Amen. Well, as a staff, we talked about this series for a while, thinking about what is it going to look like, how's it going to take shape, how's it going to form, and one of our hopes was that we would get a chance to hear from some in our community that we don't always get a chance to hear from, especially about topics that they have an expertise in and some wisdom in, and we've got a couple here tonight who have a lot of wisdom. A couple meaning two people. They're not a couple. They're a couple, but with other couples. So a couple of others. I'm just going to keep going. But before I introduce them, I just want to kind of bring us up to speed. There may be a couple here who haven't been with us this summer, and just talk with you a little bit about why we're doing this. We were thinking about why it matters that we were created as physical beings with flesh and blood, and knowing we were created in the image of God. That somehow our bodies reflect that. We don't know exactly how. God has talked about his spirit, and so we're not used to hearing about God's body, and yet there are times in scriptures where it talks about God in a bodily form. We know Jesus came in a bodily form and was raised back to life in a bodily form, and that was a pretty mysterious thing. It was similar to what he was beforehand, in that when he was recognized for who he was, they were like, oh, yeah. He also said to guys like Thomas, put your hand here, feel the nail, put your hand on my side. I mean, there's this physical body that he had. And yet, he was also confused. When Mary first encounters him in the garden, she thinks he's the gardener. Like, she doesn't recognize him. So, there's something mysterious about it, but yet, we're created in his image. And so, we wanted to spend some time this summer thinking about the implications of it. So, the first week, we talked some about rituals, and how do rituals help us embody our faith, meaning live it out. And so, we thought specifically about rest, why it matters that we rest, why we physically let our bodies rest, what happens when we don't, and then spiritually, why does it matter that God calls us to be people of Sabbath, who rest? And that was an important conversation. Last week, Lorinda led us in a conversation about how we embody spaces, inhabit places. So we're thinking about the places that we live each day. We go to work, we have our homes, we drive in our cars, we go to school, we do these different things in different actual physical spaces. And so thinking about how do we stay mindful that God is with us, that God is present, because our physical spaces can impact how we live. So we think about how do we recognize God's presence with us? How do we remember that? What are some ways, reminders, ways we can do that? We had some physical spaces created here in this room. We kind of walked around to experience that a little bit. But we also want to think and be mindful of how do we help bring the presence of Christ with us when we're in those spaces as well. So it's not just the space itself, but even us as physical, how we get to be, as Paul would say, you're the temple of God. And so how do we do it? Well, this week we want to think more specifically, physically, about our temples, our bodies, and how that the care for our bodies is important. So I've got a couple of people here. Alicia Gutierrez. Alicia, tell us a little about yourself. I know you're kind of, in many circles, a known quantity at Broadway, but I know we've also got a lot of new folks who may not be very familiar with you. So tell us a little about yourself, and Eric, I'll get you to introduce yourself in just a second.
Okay, well, I'm Alicia Gutierrez, and I am a believer, I am a wife, and I am a mother, and personal trainer.
Perfect. All right. Eric.
Eric Creel. I have a wife and 5 children. I work for the Children's Home Foundation and Texas Boys Ranch Foundation. I'm also a certified holistic health coach.
Okay, so one of the things that we've asked them to do, and I gave them some questions because it's hard enough to just talk in front of a group of people, and especially when someone's asking you questions and you don't know what those questions are. So I preloaded here a little bit and gave them the questions because I wanted them to have a chance to kind of sit and think about it. What I've asked Alicia to talk with us a little bit about tonight is the care of our physical bodies, exercise, those kind of, why does that matter? What's important about that? And Eric is going to talk to us about how we feed our bodies, the nutritional piece of that. How do we care for and feed ourselves in a way that, again, helps care for the bodies that we have been given? So, Alicia, let me begin by just kind of asking you some about how you got into personal training, how you got tuned into this in terms of caring for your body that way.
Well, I grew up, I was actually born in Scotland. My parents were missionaries there, so I am a daughter of a preacher. And my dad also competed in competitive Olympic weightlifting. So I grew up watching him set goals, train for, and very, very disciplined, very rigorous training. And I always admired that about him. Seeing him win I was pretty young, but seeing him win and hear him talk about winning the British World Championship really made an impact on me, and it set a precedence in our household for physical care and routine. And so I was an athlete in high school. I played intramural sports in college and got really interested in it. There were times through my life that I wasn't as intentional about taking care of my body, and those times were what challenged me and encouraged me to pursue educating myself and empowering myself to know more about the physical aspect and the spiritual aspect of taking care of our bodies and nutritionally. And so that began my studies through, which started as online training, then to nationally receiving a national certification through the National Association of Sports Medicine. So from that, I got a job in a gym and worked my way through to master trainer, and then decided to go on my own and pursue independent personal training, and I run group boot camps throughout town. So I really enjoy that. I like the freedom to be able to bring in my spiritual aspect of how important taking care of our bodies is, and to be able to ultimately bring people back to Christ.
Awesome. So let's dive into that a little bit and just ask you to talk with us some about what you've seen, what you've learned about why it's important that we're caring for our bodies, but not just the physical aspect. Paul talks about, Timothy, hey, physical care is of some importance, but, godliness is of infinite value. So he's not saying it's not important, but he's also recognizing, hey, these aren't two separate arenas. They're connected. Tell us a little about what are some of the benefits that you've seen? How's that been important to see people who take that seriously?
Well, from a physical standpoint, initially, the benefits of training are known as decreasing your risk for diet-related diseases, diabetes, and preventing future problems, chronic illnesses, and some cancers, and different ailments that you can receive from not properly taking care of your body. A lot of the benefits that you get mentally, really, the endorphins that you receive, and the lowered cortisol levels, which lowers your stress and helps you to learn to cope and deal with things outside of the gym. One of my things I talk a lot with my clients about is that, starting out small, but being able to progress and to build into achieving more. Sometimes it's the strength that someone learns in a gym that helps them have the strength and confidence to handle situations outside of the gym. Going on to the spiritual aspect, I really feel that God calls us to be good stewards of all that He's given us, and one of those many gifts of the blessings that we have is our bodies. Our physical bodies are what make up they're a small portion of what makes up who we are, but it's a very important component to that. And being able to properly care for your body gives you the strength to, be better equipped to serve in God's kingdom and to be able to help others in situations. I mean, even just the other day, it was kind of funny. My husband, I got a flat tire, and he came to change the tire. And it just, even in that instance, being strong enough to do that, without the equipment they have at the car shop now, you take your car to get changed and it's like, it's so fast. People forget, that it takes time. And so little things like that, that's being service to me, but being able to be in service to other people as well, so.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's amazing just how, looking at the studies scientifically of how your brain really does release these endorphins and help with your stress. And I know a lot of folks have talked, even Dr. Cook, who was here a couple of weeks ago, talks about he would always do the early morning run. That was where he processed so much that's going on in his life and his world. That was where he noticed God's beautiful creation. Just something about that tie-in for him was huge. So I'm sure you've seen that a lot in helping your clients set goals and achieve goals, and then seeing the benefit of that. Tell us some about your own personal experience. So you've grew up around this. You saw your dad, who would do this even as a career, but you yourself have kind of taken it past just, I'm interested in it, but I'm going to study it, I'm going to grow in it, I'm going to dedicate time and energy to train others to help them. Tell us about some of the benefit you just experienced in your own life of really committed to say, I'm going to care for this body that God has given to me and help others do the same.
I think it really comes back to a place of my own personal conviction, seeing that the truth in John, just to leave you a blank, that the truth will set you free. And when we look at our lives, we take an honest look at our lives and see where we can improve. I did that for myself, and I really have seen times in my life that I struggled, and I allowed my body to get in the way of my service. I allowed my body to hold me back from being a part of and seeing the value in me and seeing the worth in me. And as I mentioned earlier, our bodies are just one component of who we are and who we are in God's kingdom. And so being able to master that myself, and then wanting to be able to help empower others to do the same. I think sometimes we get caught up in just seeing as, I need to lose weight, or I need to, be a certain size, or I need to, be a certain way in order to be able to serve in God's kingdom. And I think that we all have separate parts to being a part of the body, and Scripture shows us that throughout. And so I felt that was my calling, to make that my mission, to be able to positively impact people in a way that leads them to making healthy choices for themselves, and ultimately to be in obedience to what we see throughout Scripture. I did share some verses that I take on as my own daily meditation, things that I kind of look at to help improve myself, and seeing that and knowing that we work together to ultimately lead people to Christ. And so being able to do that, that's really what my intention is with my training. And
well, you get to see, just in having different clients who are different shapes and sizes, who have different health levels, who some are experienced it and are looking for that push kind of the next level. Others are kind of going, okay, I'm at the beginning step here. I don't even know. To others that I know you're doing some work who are rehabbing from injuries and from, so finding them at different places mirrors so much our spiritual journey of we all kind of come to this in different places in different ways, and yet here's a simple way to say, hey, this could actually have some impact on my spiritual journey if I started taking better care of my physical life, my physical self, and you kind of get first row seat on that. That's really cool. So let me get you to give us some advice.
Okay.
And we'll jump to Eric here in just a second, and I'm going to ask you the same question. But for those of us who are thinking about, okay, we want to do a better job of taking our physical health more seriously. We may not be able to run out and run a marathon or lift a ton of weight, where do we start? How do we begin? Where do we begin? Maybe it's a better question when it comes to taking our physical health more seriously. What would you say?
I would say first to pray, to ask God for guidance and direction. Then I would say take time to make a SMART goal, which is categorized as being specific, being measurable, being attainable, being relevant, and also being timely. So you say you want to lose 10 pounds by the end of summer. You know, it's specific, it's measurable. You can measure it as you go. It's attainable, and it's time. You have a date on it. You can also just expand from that and know that you're really relating it back to, I want to improve my health. I want to improve my health for my family around me. I want to improve my health so that I can set an example. I want to improve my health so that I can lead others to the same empowering choices. So that would be the first step. Then I would say create a plan. Get with someone that can help guide you through creating a plan for yourself, and then work the plan. Every day there's an opportunity to continue the process, and I would say that invite other people to join you on that journey, to help hold you accountable, but also to be able to share with one another. I know that there have been times in my life that help lessen the burden when I know that I'm going to, go work out with somebody, or I'm going to go take a run with somebody, and I have something to do with somebody. I'd also suggest finding ways to incorporate it throughout your whole family, like taking family walks or going on a family bike ride. There's a lot of ways to take a step towards a more active lifestyle. Take up gardening. It's just a lot of work, especially in this area. Gardening, church activities, sports and things like that are more recreational, but they still, get your heart rate going. So going back to my training and expertise in that instance would be that what's recommended would be, 2 to 3 times a week of moderate to rigorous exercise that gets your heart rate going. There really are 3 fundamental parts to training, which is cardiovascular, your strength training, and then your mobility and flexibility. And you'd really be surprised how much flexibility and mobility play a part in everyday activities, going around taking care of your children, or even going to the grocery store. You never know what you're actually using a part of your body that if you're not stretching, if you're not working on balance, it can throw you off, and you can end up injured. So taking time to do that 2 to 3 times a week, working your cardiovascular, getting your heart rate up, and then at a minimum of 2 times a week doing some form of resistance training that helps build muscles that supports your bones, and then flexibility, working on stretching and balance each time you exercise, kind of as a cool down. So,
well, and you've given us just a whole lot to think about right there. And I want to invite you guys to come talk with Alicia afterwards, because I know she'd love to tell you more. I intentionally only gave her a certain amount of time because we were sharing, but she's got a lot of wisdom, and I would encourage you to do that. As you were talking, I was thinking of a conversation we had in staff, and one of our staff members said, one of the things I've started doing is, and this is not Rodney, even though he does this, parking as far away from the door as I can to walk in, just because I realize I don't get enough movement. And so instead of trying to find that right up front spot, I intentionally park further away just to kind of get in the habit of getting some extra steps, just getting going. Even finding some simple ways to begin where you don't feel like it's overwhelming. But he said, I love it, SMART, that specific, measurable, attainable. I think that's great. We'll come back to you here in just a minute.
Okay.
But Eric, I want to give you a chance to kind of chime in from the nutrition side of things and say, okay, we're thinking about our bodies, getting in shape, those kind of things. Tell us, how did you get into kind of the nutrition coaching? How'd you get there? Tell us about it.
Okay.
Tell us about it.
Well, I grew up in a family that kind of valued good food. Eat good food, while still very much in the mainstream American diet. My dad, when I was in elementary school, my dad had, in the church building, there was a spare classroom across from his office where he set up his weight room. And so even in elementary school, he had me down there lifting weights. You know, and
I can tell it's paid off, man.
you know, I'm just absolutely ripped.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just ripping the shirt. I know. It did not stick. But the seeds were planted early on of, to eat healthy, don't eat too much sugar. Well, years later, and really what really got me in and kind of pushed me over the edge was a cute little redhead. Okay, actually there were two girls.
Now remember, this is on tape.
Okay, so I have to be honest. There were two girls that really pushed me over the edge. That I was just head over heels for these two girls. At the same time, actually.
That's just all coming out
in very different ways, mind you. When Ireland was born, she was very sick. In fact, the first couple of years of her life, every few months, we were back in the hospital. We were checking into the emergency room. If she would cough on Tuesday, Wednesday, we're in the hospital, and for days. It's just every several months this is going on, and I thank God for modern medicine and the drugs that were available that kept her alive. But at the same time, I was thinking, what are all these heavy-duty drugs doing to this little body? This is not sustainable. We can't keep this up. About the same time, this little girl's mother was exhibiting some strange symptoms, and a host of tests, scans. Docs came back and said, all right, here's the problem. The solution is take these drugs for the rest of your life. Okay, we need another opinion. We went to another doctor, a friend of ours, who approaches medicine from a little bit different perspective. And he said, yeah, here are some things that you can do to take care of this situation. That's a real thing. You need to take care of this. But he also looked at everything else going on in life, and he really zeroed in on, what are you eating? And he said, he convinced us that we needed to make a change in our diet. And we said, okay, if this will help save the lives of these two girls that I am just absolutely smitten by, I'll do anything. And so that started the journey, really, of changing what we do and set us on a path of better nutrition.
Okay, so tell us about, so you've been on this journey now. What are some of the benefits that you've seen from saying, okay, we're not just going to be a platitude, we're not just going to say, sure, Doc, you got it, and then go off and do whatever, but saying, no, we're going to commit to making some of these changes nutritionally in our family. What have been some of the benefits you guys have experienced?
Well, number one, everybody's still alive.
Amen. And we're really glad.
That's kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
We personally, I was not in a healthy place either. In fact, I like to look at a picture every once in a while from when Ireland was just a little bitty baby, really just before we started off on this path. And I look at this picture and I see this bearded, chubby guy sitting next to my wife. Who is that? was a good 30, 40 pounds overweight. I couldn't, I had low energy. I couldn't get through the day without having to take a nap during lunch, or getting that infusion of sugar and caffeine in the afternoon to get, you know about the afternoon slump? Does anybody know about the afternoon slump? And yeah, well, I think we all know about the afternoon. When we changed our eating, started getting better food into us, I lost weight, my energy went up, I had clearer thinking, afternoon slump, not a thing. So we felt better, we could think better, just better.
Yeah. Well, and not only are you seeing that just in your own personal family, but then saying, okay, I got to tell some more people about this. I can start finding out, discovering ways to help others discover this. What are some of the benefits you've seen just in coaching others to say, hey, let me tell you about my journey, but let's help you on yours?
Right, and people started asking me, co-workers, they noticed, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so that was fun that I got to tell them. And at the time, honestly, I really didn't have a clue other than just what the doc told us. Eat real food. I'm not exactly sure what all that means, but I think I know what real food is, and so let's do that. And so that led me to get deeper and deeper into nutrition. I studied at Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and that's where I got my certification as a holistic health coach. And I started coaching one-on-one and in group sessions with people. And I love to see when the weight comes off, when gastrointestinal issues clean up, GERD is, acid reflux is a common one that I see people, they can get off their meds that they think they're going to have to be on for the rest of their lives because they can't eat, they can't not eat, they can't sleep, they can't, diabetes is reversed. It's amazing the things that happen in our body when we start eating what God intended for us to eat, and that's where I always come back. In so much of life, we have to stop and think, okay, what is the original design? What is God's original intent in this area? And I did that with nutrition, with health. Okay, what did God design for us? And did He design us intentionally? And did He provide what we need? And if we say yes, then we have to say, okay, what is that? What is the original design? What is His original intent? And that, when we started asking those kinds of questions, that really guided our path. And when we start doing things God's way, it's amazing. When we start doing things God's way, good things happen.
Go figure, huh? Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit more specifically about what you mean there. Like, what are, or similar to some of Alicia, you encounter as a coach, you're going to encounter people who are all over the spectrum in terms of their ability. Some are just looking for that push to the next level. Others who are at the very beginning going, okay, I'm not really sure. Where do I start? What advice do you have for us as we're thinking about, okay, what does it really mean that you said eat real food? Okay, talk about that for a minute. What's some advice you have for us if we're really serious about taking this seriously?
There are so many. I don't know if you've noticed this. There are a lot of different diet philosophies, nutritional approaches. Go to the bookstore. It's crazy all that, and it's confusing. We were confused, and so let's just keep it simple. Eat God-made food. If God made it, that's a good place to start. If it came out of a laboratory, we might want to keep that on the shelf. And so, eat what God made. He made vegetables, he made fruits, he made, animals and animal products, and all these grains. He made these things for a reason. He designed humans to live in this natural world, and he gave us everything we need. Did God mess up when he made grain and all the different parts of the grain? And did we only come along in recent years and say, oh, no, we don't need all these parts, we only need this part? Did we improve? Did we really improve on what God made by stripping away the bran and the germ, and we're just going with the endosperm? And so eat real food, eat the whole food that was designed to be eaten. I think that's a great place to start. And if we can do that, and if we can skip the added sugar here and the hydrogenated vegetable oil there, and the enriched this and refined that, if we can throw all that out, that's a good place to start.
Kayla and I were working with a coach in Austin and talked about if you read the ingredients and you don't know what it is, put it back on the shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know how to pronounce it, put
Right.
it back on the shelf. You might want to investigate a little bit more, but
Exactly.
I think you're right on going. Let's start with real. What's real? What's actually been created, and seeing how that impacts us. I asked you to think about, Alicia, I'll come back to you on this one as well. But practically, how do we? What are some ways that we can make some of these choices, given our cultures into fast food, instant gratification? I want to. How do we learn to make better choices when it comes to just find we're out for lunch during the week, and we've got an hour, and we don't have time to run home and get a home cooked meal, and we forgot to make that sandwich on the way out the door in the morning. Tell us maybe a practical step or two to think about making a better choice when it comes to just out and about, trying to battle some of those temptations that are in front of us.
Yeah, and temptations. Another benefit that I've experienced, and others that I've worked with have experienced, is reduced cravings. When we start eating real food and we really nourish our body with what God designed for it to consume, the cravings diminish, and those cravings that I once had, they're gone. Every once in a while, I just kind of get a hankering for something. Maybe you get a hankering for something crunchy or salty. Well, all right, grab some nuts. I'll show you what we have on our cabinets. Like these snap pea crisps. It's got green peas and some oil and some salt and some vitamin C. Crunchy, salty. It satisfies that. My kids love sea vegetables, dried roasted sea vegetables, or seaweed, as we typically call it. And they love it. And but you have to be intentional. You have to think ahead. You have to be disciplined and plan and prepare ahead of time. But eating healthy doesn't mean you're chained to the kitchen for hours every single day. For lunch, I've got a little fridge in my office, and I keep a great big box of mixed greens in it, mixed greens and vegetables. And I'll pick up an avocado and some olive oil, and I've got an awesome lunch that fuels my body for the rest of the day. Throw in some mixed nuts or boiled egg, things like that. If you have to go to a restaurant, just think about it, be wise. There are lots of places to eat that don't involve deep fried this and highly refined that. There are a lot of restaurants that kind of specialize in good food.
seeing that's becoming more and more of an option is they'll put out calorie information, even sometimes fat, protein information, just to kind of give you a sense for what's in there and how to make healthier choices on it. That's great. I'll come back to you in just a second. Let me kick it over here to Alicia and say, so and I kind of asked this before, but I want to give you a chance to kind of say similar to Eric. All right, we want to take this seriously. Give us a step or two and just kind of on, for an average person who's going, okay, I want to do this. I want to start taking this seriously. What's a thing or two we could do to say, all right, this will help get you going in the right direction when you think about caring for your health.
Okay, caring for your health and taking the first steps. I'd say start with getting moving. Find a way to get yourself moving. As Eric was talking about, eating whole foods and keeping them in their simplest, rawest form. Keeping it without being fried, without being processed, without all the additives that we like to add to things. I think taking a step and bringing it into a spiritual aspect of knowing that it's we do eat to live, but we also have taste buds, and I think God designed that too for us to be able to take pleasure in eating, to fellowship in eating together and being together, but keeping it as a way to bring people together rather than something that takes us more further into isolation. To stay positive, to know that and trust in that with God all things are possible. We make a decision, we take a step of action towards healthier living, that we have to make that commitment every single day. It's not just one time I'm going to go for a run and next week I'm going to get the benefits of it. It's every single day we're going to start implementing little things into our life. It's a small goal as I'm going to eat more greens this week, okay? I don't have to throw out everything in my pantry. I'm kind of capitalizing on what he's already mentioned, but these are some of the small steps. Sometimes I think we get so bogged down with thinking that we have to do it all one way and we have to do it all right now. Some of us, our budgets don't afford for us to be able to do that. We got to start small and then start building on that. So setting those little goals. One would be, parking further away. Carl mentioned that earlier. Taking a few laps around the house. Like I'm at home a lot more with my kids, and then I'm training other people, or I'm going to meet here or there, and I don't always get the time to have my own workout. But I made up a little 15-second spurt workout that I do. So if I'm doing the laundry, I go from the laundry to the dryer 10 more times than what I really needed to, because that is going to help me get a little more movement throughout the day. Finding ways to be creative to implement just getting your body moving throughout space. That is what ultimately exercise is, whether it depends on what level we commit to, whether we're an Olympic athlete or we're a stay-at-home mom just trying to make laps around the house,
Absolutely. Well, I love how you said, start small, we build up on that. That success breeds success, and so setting those goals. Do you have a resource or two that you might point us to say, hey, if you want to, here's a website to check out, or a book that was important for you that's kind of helped you as you think about getting people started? What would you point us to?
I would say there's a book called The Daniel Plan. All of their principles come back to spiritual principles, holistic, eating raw foods, eating from the earth, and then building community and building accountability with that. That's a good resource. I have a website that I offer free, kind of a 10-step jump to how to get moving. That's a good resource to check into. And then there are a lot of local health clubs that will give you free workout, free fitness assessment that you can walk in and they'll tell you, what you weigh, what your body fat is, and give you like a little 5-point mission statement to improve your health.
Yeah. It's amazing how many of these resources out there, we just don't realize it, but they're just at our fingertips. They're showing that initiative, being able to do that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Eric, so for you as you're thinking about nutrition, couple places, couple of pieces of advice you'd say, all right, here's where I'd start.
Yeah. The first great resource and that we discovered, we went to the bookstore because we didn't know what else to do. We went to the bookstore, we're just roaming up and down the aisles of the bookstore, looking at this, looking at that, and we picked up, this is part of my exercise program.
Yeah, that's right, just carrying that in.
Yeah. This got to be our food Bible. We talked about the food Bible a lot in our house. And it's called The World's Healthiest Foods. And this has turned out to be the most powerful tool for us because of what is in it. If you want a menu plan, there's a menu plan in the first part. He then breaks down different categories of foods, and he looks at individual foods, and he talks about the benefits of this particular food, how to shop for this food, how to store this food, how to prepare this food, how to cook this food, and several recipes and variations using this food. And all of these recipes are just so simple. Made with just real food, just food. It's not open up a packet of French onion mix and it's just food, and it's delicious, and it's good tasting food. And so many of them are like 5-minute meals, 7-minute meals. It's not going to take you all day long of slaving over a hot stove. I've been to where all my health coach clients, I buy this for them. And I tell them, use this. And it's all kind of marked up and splattered inside. So the World's Healthiest Foods is a fantastic resource for us. And it continues to this day.
Excellent. In just a second, Rodney, will you come lead our closing prayer? I want to end a couple minutes early because I want to give you all a chance to come and explore a little bit. They brought some resources. You have the handout from Alicia. If you don't have it, be sure to grab one of those. Several verses on that. Your website, is it Alicia Gutierrez Fitness?
That is the Facebook.
That's the Facebook.
But in holdthelinefitness.com.
Okay, holdthelinefitness.com. And Eric, what about folks who want to find out about your coaching, that kind of thing? Is there a website, or is it just talk to you personally? All right. Do the old analog dial. If you have a rotary phone, even better. But Eric, I know will be glad to answer those questions. But we'd love for you guys to look at some of the materials that they have that they brought, and then ask some questions. But before I do that, can we thank them for sharing? One of the things that, again, just maybe think of these two is when you talk with them, the conversation isn't very long before they're turning it back to spiritual implications of taking your physical health seriously and of eating well. That's a spiritual deal. And God created us in ways and created the environment that we're in and has given us what we need. And yet in our culture, it's so easy to get kind of thrown off track. So thank you guys both for what you shared with us and for spurring us onward and for your willingness to kind of help coach us as we take those first steps. Rodney, if you would come and lead us in closing prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you did us together when we were still in our mothers. Lord, we just ask that you would help us each and every day to think about how we can live our lives in a way that we glorify and honor what you have done already in our lives and the challenges that you still have ahead for us as you allow us to participate with you in the recreation of this world into the image that you wanted it to be, to that good and perfect world that you originally created. Lord, I thank you so much for Eric and for Alicia coming here today, and I thank you for not only what they've done today, but what they continue to do in the lives of other people, day in and day out, and so many others in our community that help us to take care of our bodies, but to fully recognize that we are not simply bodily beings. We are beings that are deeply spiritual, and there's a deep connection in all of that, in sharing in your image. We thank you for the work that Karl has done in preparing this series, and Lorinda and others who worked so hard. We ask your special blessings upon this church and the people who go here. Help us to be participants in your mission. We pray these things in the most holy name of Jesus Christ.
All right, thanks everybody. Next week will be the last week in this series, and we're going to talk about art, our bodies in art, and expressing worship. So it'll be awesome. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a little bit more interactive. So hope you'll come next time. Thanks.